So I wanted to do another video on borderline personality disorder and when it actually starts, guys. There are two things to keep in mind here. The first thing is the etiological side of this, in other words, the causes of the condition. The second are the symptoms, in other words, when BPD starts manifesting in someone's life. So speaking from an etiological perspective, there are a lot of things that cause BPD. You know, not having a father around, he could even be in your life, but he's just not really present. Having an overbearing mother when you don't have a father around. Maybe your father's just absent. Childhood trauma. If you suffered any sort of childhood trauma, you're very susceptible to developing BPD. Separation of parents, that's another one. So that's the etiological side of that. And it could be argued that BPD starts at that moment. I know it did for me, and that my symptoms, even though they were subtle, they started almost immediately after my childhood trauma, okay? Now, the other side are the symptoms themselves. And a lot of people seem to believe that BPD starts when the symptoms start. So for most people, that's adolescence or early adulthood. Although I will mention that BPD can start at any age, and the symptoms can also start at any age. I mean, you could suffer a trauma at age 40 and develop BPD. That is entirely possible. Okay, I've seen that for sure. But regardless of that facet, it's important to take note that just because the symptoms start at adolescence or early adulthood does not mean that you did not have BPD before that. And oftentimes that trauma before the diagnosis, before the symptoms, whatever symptoms caused you to seek treatment or go into therapy or investigate this and decide whether or not you had BPD, you very well may have had the condition beforehand. Now, I have scoured the internet for this type of study, and there's a serious lack of resources for this, meaning I haven't found any study that really indicates that this is true. My suspicion that BPD could have started earlier than the symptoms, and that just goes to prove that there's not enough research on this topic and that most people have not dug deep enough, in terms of research on borderline personality disorder. But with that said, I kind of want anybody who's suffering from BPD to understand that there is usually a traumatic event of some kind or some sort of etiological factor, no matter when you suffered that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's when the symptoms start. And I hope this video kind of helps clear that up a little bit.